Everybody knows what this is. It's a ball python, a very good looking one, and I bet you think you know how to take care of them, right? I bet there's 5 things you didn't know and you must know before you get one of these amazing snakes. So today, we're going over the top 5 things you need to know before getting a ball python. My name's Adam, this is Pikachu, you're watching Wickens Reptiles, stick around. I think ball pythons are pretty simple to take care of. There hasn't been too much change in the last 5 years or so since I've been doing YouTube. So I wanted to tell you about the things that maybe you didn't know and are really important to know when you get one of these. Starting off with number 5, most information from 10 years ago is no longer correct. And a lot of the problem with early YouTube is they were just regurgitating things that they knew from the 90s, early 2000s. And these are the days when we did things like, oh, you can keep your ball python in a 40-gallon enclosure. This snake is almost 5 feet long, okay? Well, this one's not, he's 4 feet, but females can get 5 foot plus. A 5-foot snake can't live in a 40-gallon enclosure their entire life. Not only that, but, and there's a few things we'll touch on specifically, but oh, ball pythons don't do this, ball pythons won't use that, ball pythons' humidity level should never be above this or that, and they don't need hides, and they should be in drawers, and they're gonna get stressed out and won't eat otherwise, and just most of the information is not really good. So I would just, take it with a grain of salt. Instead, use a few different sources, right? So watch Clint's video, watch my video, watch Barchuk's video, Snake Discovery, whoever, right? Pick your sources and then kind of meet in the middle. And I think those examples, most of us kind of have the same idea. Read care guides from people who do studies. Watch the Dave Coffin ball python video where he actually goes in the wild to see what they're like in the wild. Of course, take this with a grain of salt. Don't treat animals like they're wild animals. They're not. If I put this animal out in West Africa where ball pythons are from, it would probably be eaten pretty quickly considering it's a morph, right? There's just certain things that you take with a grain of salt, and these are care guides that we make. They're not, do as I say or your ball python will spontaneously combust. That's not a real thing. So just take everything with a grain of salt, do your research, and use common sense. That's the most important part. But for this point, don't use outdated information solely. Don't get a book because it's a book and people who can read books think they're better than everyone who doesn't read books. Oh, I read it from a book. Okay, well, guess what? Books can't be updated. A book from 1999 isn't as accurate as something that was updated last week about ball pythons in all likelihood. So just because it's a book and on paper and you seem super smart reading one, doesn't mean that it's the proper information. This is 3. 4 is that ball pythons do in fact need light. A lot of people will say, oh, ball pythons, they're nocturnal, so therefore they don't need light. Well, they do. They still need to know when it's nighttime and when it's daytime. They are not magic. The way that they tell that is the same way that you and I do. When it's dark, it's night. When it's not, it isn't. Of course, they use temperature and humidity spikes as well. But the point is, even if you keep them in a rack, and I'm not going to say racks are bad or anything like that in this video. There's a whole video right here about that if you want to watch it, where I take on that topic. But even if you're keeping them in a rack system that doesn't have a light in the enclosure, they're going to get the light from the room to let them know that it's daytime. So I'm not saying, outfit them with like the best lighting situation and make sure that they have UVB, although UVB 2.0 could probably be good for them. I don't think that it's mandatory to keep UVB or special lighting on your ball python. The way that I keep mine in 4x2x2 enclosures, which is what I recommend in my care guide, is I have a Govee strip light. There's a link in the description if you want the same one. And I use a radiant heat panel for heat, and then the radiant heat panel on, because I stack them, below acts as the heat spot for the enclosure above it. It's kind of an easy setup. I mean, once you get used to it. Should I cover this in the reptile room tour, which we're doing? It's filmed. I just have to edit it, by the way. Let me know in the comments section below if you want to see that. Either way, they do need lighting, not special lighting, but they need to know when it is daytime and when it is not daytime. Speaking of not needing light, there's quite a few things that you don't need, and I'm talking about bad habit. But that doesn't mean you have to quit your habit cold turkey. That just means we need to take the bad out of the habit. And that's where today's sponsor, Fume, comes in. Fume is an innovative, award-nominated device that does just that. Helps you take that bad out of your habit. Fume does not use electronics. No smoke, no vapor. This is literally flavored air. That's it. Something I love about the Fume device is it has an adjustable airflow dial, so you can choose how much air comes in. Do you want to pull a lot, pull a little bit, or do you just want to fidget it around because it kind of helps relieve stress in and of itself. All the flavors are delicious, but some of these new ones are absolutely fantastic. Lemon raspberry is one of the favorites. You can tell it's already open. I've almost had all the cores so far. Sparkling grapefruit is unique. You can almost feel a carbonation in your mouth. This one feels really satisfying. In orange vanilla, this is my second pack. I already went through the first one. Absolutely refreshing. I love this one too. And when I say the flavors work, I mean they work. You'd think that they wouldn't be strong enough or they'd be too strong. None of the above. It's almost perfect. The right amount of flavor that feels natural. And the Fume Solano is launching on November 6th, so upgrade your Journey Pack to the Solano to enjoy your premium walnut barrel and onyx black coated mouthpiece that has a slightly softer finish. But I'll tell you what, the original, chef's kiss. So join Fume in accelerating humanity's breakout from destructive habits by picking up the Journey Pack today. Head to tryfume/Wickens or scan the QR code on the screen and use code Wickens to get 10% off when you get your Journey Pack today. That's tryfum.com and use code Wickens to get an additional 10% off your order today. Thanks Fume for sponsoring today's episode. Back to the list. Number 3, they do not live in termite mounds. They live in termite mounds the way that you and I live in houses. And I know someone's gonna make the joke, it's bold of you to assume I never leave my apartment. It's like, okay, well, whatever, basement dweller. The point is, sure, they might spend time, and that's where they take refuge from elements and predators in a termite mound, but they don't spend every waking second in a termite mound. This is often the excuse or reasoning that people who use ball python racks always never giving them a big enough bin, keeping them really cramped with nothing but a water bowl like to use. You know, they say, oh, well, 4x2x2, why? In the wild, they would never, no. In the wild, they have ranges. They definitely use more than 8 square feet of space. Sure, they're going to live and sleep in a termite mound, just like you live and sleep in an apartment or a house. The point is, just because a ball python spends a lot of time in a certain place does not mean they live there. Doesn't mean that we should keep them in the smallest enclosure possible. What that means is, let's make it like the real world, where the real world is really big. West Africa is really big. They have a really big range, and then the termite mound is an option. So give them room to move, and then give them a hide that will act as that termite mound, because that is how it works in real life. Termite mounds don't have doors that shut and never open again. They can choose to leave if they want. And they do. It's crazy, but there are no keepers who just come around all the termite mounds in West Africa with tongs and a rat once a week. Like, that's not a thing. They leave to go find rats. Duh. Number 2, ball pythons do in fact use height. So if you give them the option, they will climb most of the time. I'm not saying every single one. They're individuals, right? If you give most humans the opportunity to go into a pool in the heat of the summer, they're gonna choose to. Some people don't know how to swim or don't like it. You know what I mean? Most people are gonna choose to drive a Ferrari over a Corolla. Some people won't because they're hipsters. I don't know why you would choose to do that. But the point is, some ball pythons will choose not to use height if they're given height. But in my experience, which is over a decade, keeping literally over 100 ball pythons from babies to adults, they almost always choose to use it. Pikachu, for example, I have footage of him using height when it's offered to him. And that's why I recommend 2-foot enclosures, just because it gives you the option if it's there. Now, of course, if you observe this ball python for a year, I don't know, and they never use height, well, by all means, use a smaller enclosure if you really want to. But in my experience, they're going to use height. Ball pythons are going to climb. Use a couple 2x4s, untreated ones, of course. Use, I don't know, bamboo logs and sticks or whatever. Make your own. Put a hide on the ceiling. Animals at Home does this for his carpet python. These are great examples of how to give them that space. Because in the ball python movie, like, Dave finds out, a lot of the times, sure, it's because of monsoons and they're trying to escape water that is, drowning out their homes, but they're going to be found in the trees. So that's natural for them. It's natural for them to be found in the trees. Also, it's thought that younger ball pythons, not proven, but thought, a theory, younger ball pythons, especially males, will eat a lot of birds, which they're going to find the nests in the trees, so they're going to climb. So would I call them a semi-arboreal snake? No. But if you give them opportunity to climb, it's fun for you because your eyes are going to move around. That's personally why I love things like dart frogs, because they're going to use all the height and move around. It's not just this one plane of field. So, and I think that's why people love aquariums, right? Because fish are here, there, everywhere, up and down. Well, ball pythons can be the same way if you give them the option. Number 1, not eating is okay. If their ball python is not eating for a certain amount of time, it's okay. Here's what you look for to make sure that it's not okay. You want to see if the ball python is losing weight. So I recommend just throw your ball python in a bucket on a food scale and figure it out. If your ball python, say 2,000 grams, which is in the range of normalcy for, some ball pythons, especially females, then okay, it's 2,000 grams. The ball python stops eating for, 2 weeks, a month, 3 months, 6 months. Is it now 1,990 grams? Well, who cares? It lost 10 grams. What's the percentage of that ball python's weight, right? It doesn't really matter because it's negligible, right? You're gonna lose 10 grams from taking a good urate if you're a ball python, right? So you don't have to worry about that. If they lose significant weight and no longer look like this, which in my opinion is the perfect body shape for a ball python, then you have stuff to worry about. But that is not the case if they're not losing weight. Ball pythons go off feed. That's a normal thing. That's part of it. This doesn't mean that you're setting them up incorrectly. If they're not eating to the point where they're losing weight and starving themselves, then yes, you likely have an issue with humidity or heat, or you're not giving them enough space to actually hide. So maybe they do feel insecure, but don't jump to that immediately. Pikachu, he didn't this year, but in the years I've owned him since 2017, every year except for the past year, he has gone on a food strike and he just refuses to eat for 5 months. And then like clockwork, he goes back on. Now for me, it's not a big deal. I got tons and tons of snakes that eat the same size rat as Pikachu does. So when he doesn't eat, it's not a wasted life. It goes to someone else. I understand how it's maybe, not great for you and hurts you to not be able to see your ball python eat every week if you only have one of them. And of course, then you're wasting a life. But if your ball python's going on food strike, just maybe, all right, well, he didn't eat this week or last week or the week after that. Give it a month and see what happens. So that way you're wasting one rat a month rather than, one rat every week. So anyway, those are the 5 things. Let me know in the comment section below if you agree with these things or more things, because there's a lot of people here that are getting into ball pythons, and I would love as a community if we could help each other out. What's something that you think we need to know about ball pythons before you get one? As always, thanks for hitting like and subscribe. You guys are freaking amazing. Thank you so much for the Patreon supporters. You guys get videos early, discounts on merch. You guys get one-on-ones, all that and more for as little as $1 a month. And that's it. Because I do videos on Mondays and Thursdays, that means I'll see you in the next one.